What's good, everybody? My name is Alckemy. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about how I made this 4-bar loop. If you are brand new to the channel and you like this kind of stuff, consider subscribing. Even though I don't really make this kind of content, I have to be honest with you. This is neither my genre nor my interest. I find Riddim kind of boring, but a few people have been asking me how to do it for a long time, so I'm just going to give you my interpretation of it. So I really don't want to see the comments of like, that's not Riddim. What? I don't care. If we can get past that and you like the sound, then stick around. We're going to go ahead and briefly talk about the drums, and then I'm going to talk about how I made the bass. A couple key things with the drums is that there is a kick on every beat. So boom, boom, boom. And then the snare is actually sidechained to the kick. And that way you still have a really strong fundamental that you have the kick kind of repeating, and then it's kind of supported by that. So it's almost like a really slow house tune that's really aggressive and pissed off. There is also some reverb, and the way that I do that is by creating a chain splitter, and the reverb is at 100% on this. And then I've got a dry layer. And that way it just gives me more control over the reverb in its own right, and then the sidechain is at the end. And the sidechain is also usually a different timing than everything else, so that's why I wouldn't maybe group everything in one and just have one particular sidechain. The snare you want to be a little bit more precise with, for lack of better description. So the way that I get my drums really loud is I use some glue compression and I turn the threshold down way down. Then I clip it so that way it gives me more headroom, and that way when I push it through the limiter at the very end, I can actually make this way more loud, which I even have some more headroom that I could arguably get away with. So yeah, the only other thing is that on this ride over here, there's this delay, and that's what's giving it the shuffle, because without it, just a really easy way to kind of create that, you know, vibe of like, yeah, yeah, I don't know. Okay, so moving on, make sure that your kick is short, and I kind of take out some low end with an EQ. That's pretty much it. Yeah, just go get some Riddim drums. You can get some off Splice or something. It's like really easy. That, yeah, okay. Let's go ahead and talk about the bass now. I will come over here and turn all this other stuff off. There are two groups on here. The first one I'm going to turn off. That's like the main one that you hear, and then this is just the sub aspect, and that's why I'm doing this first, because it's easier to explain. We've got the sine wave right here that's got a little bit of saturation, and then I'm notching out the low mids. Now, the reason why I have this ramp right here is because I don't want it to be just a constant sine wave. I want it to kind of have a little bit of motion to it. So I have just that little LFO that's making that modulate the volume. And then I'm sending that to lane 2, so it's actually not going through any of the effects on lane 1, and then they combine in lane 3. So now that we have that, the next thing that we've got is another sine wave, but it's got some saturation, or distortion rather, and I'm taking out the low end here, and then it's going to lane 1. Down below is where we have our FM sources, so it's 2 sine waves, 1, 2, and then a growl table like this, and that's pretty much like just creating the main timbre of that. And like once you have that, then you want to introduce movement, which we've done through the LFO, and I've made it really simple of just the boom, boom, boom. And that's also like where you can actually get the most creative. So my advice to you would be to shape the tone, and then once you shape the tone, figure out ways to get into the tone, or like make the sound complete during specific timing, so don't just keep it stagnant. And some ways that I've achieved that is, for one, obviously by using the LFO, but some other things that you can do is by taking the same LFO and modulating how much FM you apply over time. So if I go right here and I hit this plus button, you'll see that I've got the wavetable percentage via the LFO both here and here. And now if I adjust this, it's actually going to change the timbre of the sound via the yellow knobs. So you can see here that, you know, just by adjusting how much FM you apply over time, it really kind of makes it its own in that way. So other than that, I mean, really, it's just a matter of getting a couple of things to FM and like trying not to go too crazy with it, because if you just apply a bunch of FM at once, then it's just going to sound like noise. But you kind of like, the trick to FM is to just build a little bit over time, a little bit over time, a little bit over time. So yeah, and if I hadn't said it already, please like don't try to copy this patch exactly. Like this is a guide. Copying patches is the quickest way to lead to frustration, because you're going to try to pause the settings and make everything exactly the same, and it's still not going to sound the same. Save yourself the trouble, create your own bass. This is just kind of, again, just a walkthrough about how it can be achieved. So, and be proud of your own sounds too. So yeah, there is a little bit of FM or modulation that's here. So I don't use this the entire time. I actually turn it off until it gets to the end. So you can see that by the waveform being flatline, and then it kind of goes up. And then I'm modulating the frame just a little bit, and that's pretty much it for the source sound. Once you have that, it's all about effects. So I'm going to turn all these on now, just because the limiter is the most important thing, so that way you don't blow your ears out. But we've got a comb filter that's applying the same LFO, and most of the time with these kinds of basses, you have everything follow the same movement pattern. You can vary it if you want, but it's just easier to do it this way. So the comb filter along with the delays are going to make it a lot more metallic. So if we take a listen to, let me turn this other stuff off. Turn that off. If we take a listen to everything up to the delays, it sounds like this. And if you wanted that to be even more dramatic, which you really only hear during the tail, but if you pull the feedback up, you can kind of hear how that has that cool, interesting buzzing sound. So take a couple delays and just combine them with each other, and that's pretty much all you have to do to get like more metal. The transient shaper arguably isn't really doing anything other than creating a pump right here. This is kind of unnecessary, but it's just kind of, again, trying to make like the kick really clean and then make the bass come in so it has that cool call and response. Then this filter right here is doing a lot. It's actually swooping the low mids to, one, give it more talking characteristics, and two, it's cleaning everything up. So, and it kind of makes it sound like it's going through a portal as well. So I really like that aspect. And then if you see this, that just means that that same LFO is moving on the cutoff or whatever. All right, so the multipass is what's making it wide. The low end is in mono, everything below 160 hertz. Then on the midband, you've got some ensemble and phaser. And then on the top end, you've got a Haas effect and an automated reverb. And that just makes it really big. But Alckemy, what about the, mono compatibility? Well, most systems these days are actually stereo, and most people are listening on hi-fi systems, even on their phones or through earbuds or your computer speakers or whatever. Most of these tunes, which isn't many that I've listened to though, are actually have like really wide stereo basses, so don't worry about it. Just make sure your low end is in mono, you'll be okay. So the last thing within lane 1 is we're cutting some low mids here, and that's just to clean the sound up. It does sound thicker if you don't have any of this stuff, but whenever it goes into mixing, this is the easiest way to make your mix not sound good. So by removing some of the low mids here, it's actually going to clean everything up, and you're going to get just as much impact. You won't even notice it's gone. So the last thing that we've got is over here, we've got some dynamics and a limiter, but this is just an OCT. Pull up the overachiever preset and turn the first band and the fifth band off, make the mix 50%, rename it something clever, and then you're good to go. That's pretty much it for this bass. The last final touches that we've got outside of the DAW are an OCT that just brings out more high end. Then we've got a little bit of EQ to push the bass up a little bit more. And then we've got this Pro MB that is making this a little bit more smooth. So without it, it actually sounds kind of erratic. So if you take a listen without, it sounds good, but it's too much. So this kind of mellows it out a little bit. And then once you have everything together, just set up a long release sidechain towards the kick and you're good to go. That's pretty much it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this content, again, I probably won't be doing much more Riddim stuff because I don't really enjoy doing it, but I do have plenty of bass tutorials and other interesting heavy electronic music stuff related things on my channel. So go follow and subscribe and stuff. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.